Hello and welcome to Comic Culture. I'm Terrence Dollard, a professor in the Department of Mass Communication at the University of North Carolina at Pembroke. My guest today is Anthony Snyder. He is the owner of Anthony's Comic Book Art. Anthony, welcome to Comic Culture.
Hey, thanks for having me. I married a woman from North Carolina, so it's always cool to do stuff that's North Carolina centric.
Well, I first became aware of you and your company at Heroes Con in Charlotte, and you generally have a pretty big presence at the convention there where you are selling original comic book art. And I was wondering how a business like that works, and if you could tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Well, I got started collecting comics, actually going back to when I met my wife. I started collecting again instead of running around and, not doing other stuff. I started collecting comics again because I collected as a child. And like when I was 9, 10, 11 years old, like right there, I read 20-cent Marvels and DCs and loved those storylines. And that Bronze Age storylines were still intact. The continuity was still intact. So I really, I went back and bought old back issues Silver Age. So I had an entire Silver Age collection by the time I was 12. Now I put that away when I got into 8th grade, started playing team sports and, looking at girls. And then when I got married, I kind of started collecting again. And then in the early 90s, I met Mike Carbonaro, a famous dealer up here, and he's also a show promoter. He's done about 100 days of shows up here over the past 20 years. And he turned me on to original comic book art. So I was living in a New York apartment at the time, and I realized, like, wow, I could have like a case, just like a case like this, and do business instead of having, 100 comic boxes that I had to walk up and down a five-story walk up. So that kind of made me shift into original art. And that was in the 90s when the stuff was out there and it was easy to get. And that's when I became an art guy. It was in the 90s like that. And I was setting up at shows from like 93 on. So I've been in this business, buying, selling, and trading for, wow, what is that? 27 years? Mm-hmm. 26 years, 26, 27 years. And that's how I've built this business in the warehouse aspect of it the past 5 years, where I've diversified back into comics, graded comics, and collectibles and paper, like anything. I mean, like I just did a deal that had Star Wars, a Pete Rose baseball, a Yoda from the theater, comics, paperbacks, records. So the original art, though, is my mother ship and love for the business.
Now, we read comics, and it's always the eye-catching art that grabs us, holds us, and makes us fans. At least that's the way it was for me.
Sure. And I do remember storylines from when I was reading in the 7th grade. Those certain pages that just stuck with me, like Sal Buscema's Defenders, Avengers crossover. Anytime I got one of those pages, I held on to my collection. I didn't put it in inventory because I loved those storylines.
So, what was, I guess, the first piece of original art that you were able to acquire, and how did that sort of, you buy something as a collector and you like to hold on to it, but at some point you decide that you can let a certain piece go. So how do you go from being a collector to being someone who's a dealer? Right.
That's a very hard transition and a very, very, very interesting question, because there's stuff that, like, you if you get like in it tweaks that nostalgia bone that I call it, like those, like Sal Buscema, Avengers Defenders, or Captain America, or the Ross Andrews Spider-Man, those 20-cent issues that I was buying when I was a kid that I'm nostalgic about. When I get those, I'd like to try to keep them. Other stuff like Silver Age, Kirby stuff, and stuff like that, when I get that, it's like, yeah, I remember this and I like it and I have an appreciation for it, but it's merchandise. So it has to like tweak my nostalgia bone to like, I want to keep that. But what really is the crossover with me was the fact that I was actually a commercial photographer in New York up until 9/11. And I was actually an eyewitness. I was downtown that day, And it was very traumatic, and a lot of stuff went south for a lot of people. And one of the things that went bad was advertising industry in New York went to zero. And so like it basically destroyed my career. I had a career and it was destroyed with that. There was a building that we worked out of that was contaminated from the collapses, and we never went back in those buildings. So at that point on, it basically all my collection became inventory, and I sold off like a lot of Kirby art and a lot of I had like the entire X-Men 8 book. So like when I stopped making money as a photographer, that's when I had to put it into inventory and start like selling off the stuff that I wanted to keep. So that was, and I had to cross that boundary in my mind, and it was very painful. It really was, because I wanted to keep that stuff, but I had to like break that down and like, okay, I got to sell this, got to pay the bills, got to become, and that's when I became, a professional dealer, and that's when I had to decide to carry stuff that I didn't really, I didn't like so much. I wasn't ever going to keep. So I had to keep stuff that other people are going to like, because it's not my taste. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and different people have different tastes, and that's why I have 25,000 pieces of art here, for all different tastes. And if you look through a book that says Spider-Man, there's $50 pages, $100, $50, $150 to $500 pages. So I'm the only guy in the country that tries to carry the full range of price points for people and their budgets. What I call the budget collector, to guys that the whales, the guys that can like swing a big bat.
Right. And now it's interesting because the comic market had a bubble in the 90s that burst, and a lot of the collectibles that I have on my set behind me were purchased thinking, oh, they'll be worth something someday, and they're worth pennies on the dollar now. But it seems that original art is, well, it seems to be gaining in value.
It was bulletproof, yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I mean, that stuff that you talk about, that whole Valiant craze, I was there. I went through that. I used to see Valiant golds like what was that, 93, and golds were like, a guy would have a whole box of them and sell them out through the show at $100 in 1993 money. Oh my God, and then they went down to $1, but now they've come up to like 10-ish. But then, those characters have warmed up again based on the media, that they're going to be like used in media, like Turok and some of those other Valiant characters that are supposedly going to be used in movies and TV. So they've warmed up. Artwork has been, just a steady rise. And that's why my career, when it got torpedoed on 9/11, it's like this stuff kept rising and rising, and my career kept going harder and harder. But now it's just gotten into overdrive in a way that some pieces are just going for so much money that I can't even compete for. It's crazy. So we call crazy money.
Yeah, I heard recently that Neil Adams had a piece of art that an editor had given away to someone, and he was upset that it was being sold until somehow he worked out some arrangement with the new purchaser to get his blessing on buying the artwork. And I'm wondering, how do you gather your collection?
I've actually talked to Neil about that story because I was interested, yes.
So
I understand that story, yeah.
So when you're dealing with the artists, are you dealing with them directly? We talked a little bit before. You mentioned a piece that's on my set, an Arthur Adams piece, and you were saying that you had just acquired some work that he had done. And I'm wondering how you make these connections with the artist, or if you're dealing just strictly with other collectors.
It's all three versions. That I actually rep some artists that I sell their art for them, like Esad Ribic, the Secret Wars, and Loki, and the Silver Surfer Requiem artist, and he's a painted artist that I can sell his work for a wide range of money. He's a cover artist for Marvel now, still doing covers, and his covers sell between $4,000 and $10,000.
Wow.
So I mean, my commission, I can make a good commission on that kind of stuff. And then Alex Malev, that's working on his own creator-owned and Iron Man International. So he's doing covers that can sell for $5,000 $6,000-7,000 as well. The new artist stuff in that kind of price range is, can be lucrative as a rep. And then, so I deal with them and sell their stuff for them on a commission basis. And then there's artists like Art Adams, where I'll just see at a show, and he knows me, and I bought from him for many years, and I'm just like, how much for all three? And then he's like, he had 3 covers available, and I wanted to buy all 3, but he wouldn't sell them to me. So he's like, oh, okay, I'll sell you, pick one, so I have a couple for other collectors or whatever. So sometimes it's like that. I bought that Guardians cover and just did a deal on it. So I buy from them, and then I buy collections from collectors that have been, either like the past 3 years or 20 years. Some people get into it and then like get out of it. Other people are more committed, and I'm the most committed with everything here. There's no getting out of it for me. I'm stuck.
Now, you said that you have a 7,000 square foot facility. I was wondering if you could take us around a little bit and maybe show us some pieces that mean something to you.
Okay. Well, we're in the art room right now.
Okay.
And this is all the art. Like, this is Marvel, DC, and then artists, and different large art. Even the underground artists like Kim Deitch here. This is like a masterpiece that you may not know, but it's just amazing stuff that I've learned to have an appreciation for. Like, this guy is an incredible artist, but he's more of an underground artist than not a superhero artist. And then here's some personal favorite of mine, Dune. So that's cool. And I know my camera operator has a love of Dune. And look, it's Jean-Luc Picard when he was in the movie Dune in like 1984, right? Was it 84?
And who's the artist on that page?
That's Bill Sienkiewicz.
Oh, wow.
And there you see Max von Sydow, that was just nominated for Best Supporting Actress on Game of Thrones. He's still doing it to this day. It's crazy. So I like that stuff. And then, then I carry stuff that I don't really, I don't particularly like, but, there's like strip stuff, old stuff to, hillbilly stuff to, to more fun stuff like Walking Dead art. This is a cool zombie fighting scene, as far as, topical and fun and like a pop culture icon that Walking Dead phenomenon, I should say, that Walking Dead's become. I mean, to me, honestly, artwork wise, these are like $100 pages, but because it's so big, these are, $500 to $1,000 pages. Wow. Because of popularity, so that's cool. But again, like, I'm not really a horror guy, so it's just, that's merchandise, so when I grab a batch of stuff out of my cover bin, like this is a painted cover from Esad for Uncanny X-Force with a Deadpool fighting Kingpin, I believe, or maybe the Blob. And then here's a cool page, because like Preacher just got produced and the whole first season just ran. So this Preacher stuff is on fire. I mean, I remember buying and selling these pages for $30, $40, $50, and now a decent page of him just standing around talking to his mom is $2,000. So that's another like example. These are media sensation stuff. And here's a guy that I really respect and like is respected like by artists everywhere, is Richard Corbin. Just amazing work. He's been doing it since the 70s for sure, maybe late 60s, and he's still doing it. That's really cool.
And what would you say is the oldest piece? Do you have any Golden Age art or perhaps even pre-newspaper days?
Off the Golden Age, I mean, unless it's like Superman, Batman, the Golden Age. I do have some Golden Age stuff. Here's some stuff I like. It's like European Disney stories, that like the Northern Europeans love this stuff. It's a phenomenon in Europe. And here's a really nice, like Joe Quesada cover, Ninjak.
Mm-hmm.
I like it more so just as an art piece, not so much for the valiant character of Ninjak, but it's just like the accomplishment. No, the artwork is just amazing. Mm-hmm. With the Asian theme. I mean, this could just be like a ninja. It doesn't have to be like. That's one of my favorite pieces. I don't even want to sell that. Here's a piece by Frank Cho, who's just a master of. It's kind of a minimalist thing, you know. It's like there's not much to it, but it's just like wow, it really gets you. It's like merchandising artist Silver Surfer.
Well, we seem to have lost your video feed for the moment. So we'll just see if we can get that back.
Oh, there you go.
There we are.
Are we back?
We're back now.
Okay, sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay.
Here's a cool, really cool piece that I just got recently. It's the model. It's the model sheet for Tigra from the animated feature by Ralph Bashki and Frank Frazetta.
Oh.
So this is the model sheet for by Frank Frazetta. The drawing for that character. It's really cool. It's got all these inked figures on it.
Now, is it difficult to get what essentially?
And I bought that from the Frazettas. So.
Okay, so I was going to say, I mean, it's got to be difficult to get pieces of art that are never meant to be published. I mean, that's something that stays in an office and is supposed to be looked at by other artists to make sure that the characters stay on model, and you're able to get stuff like that from the family. But I'm assuming that's tougher to get than let's say the latest issue of Batman or something like that.
Oh well, yeah. That's what is that? 50 years old, you know, and had to he and his wife both had to pass away, and the stuff had to be bequeathed to their children to sell it, you know, because they wanted to sell it for money. You know, the Frazettas didn't really need the money. They wanted to like hold the integrity of the art and have a museum, and they had the stuff kind of archived and in a museum until they both passed away, and then they had 4 children, 4 children and grandchildren, and it got spread out, and that's how a lot of stuff got to market. Mm-hmm. With that stuff. I have a really cool Frazetta piece. I have an oil palette that's really nice. I want to show you one of his last oil palettes.
Mm-hmm. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, cool. Oh. This is fun. This is like a character design piece by Jack Kirby, who is the greatest comic book creator ever. This is Orion in his power-up mode, like a toy design art. So those are his sketches for the model design mm-hmm. for Orion in his power-up mode for a toy design.
I will point out that the shirt that I'm wearing today is the Jose Luis Garcia Lopez Superpowers cover art.
Oh, cool.
From all the figures, and I think somewhere on here is his version of Orion in that suit.
Yeah, I love him. I buy from him every time I see him. That's one of those guys, like, you know, he's an old timer, but he's not too old. He's still working. And like, there's just been that whole generation like have passed away that I used to see, like Gil Kane and Dick Ayers and Dave Cockrum and, you know, those kind of guys that used to be at all those shows when I first started doing this. And I remember Gil Kane coming up to me with a pile of covers, and I like, want to buy some? They're $200 a piece, you know. And I was like, and I'm sorting through them, you know. It's like, yeah, that, you know, it's sad that all the old timers are gone. Mm-hmm. You know, you have that kind of like next generation guys that are still with us, like Neil Adams and Steranko and Garcia Lopez and you know, those kind of great creators like that. But all those old guys, you know, have you know, like I used to like bring a box of cigars for Joe Simon every time he was at a show, and we'd do a deal and like count the cigars in the deal, and he'd make sure he hooked me up, like because he loved chomping cigars. You know, so there's a lot of guys that I remember the first time I met Jack Kirby was in an early San Diego con, and there was a pile of artwork like this, like just books and books and books of art for sale, like all his 70s stuff that he had control of, because when he left Marvel and went to DC, DC, he hired his inkers. So he just paid them out. They didn't get any artwork, and all those books were intact. And then when he went back to Marvel, he did the same thing. So all that 70s stuff, all the Fourth World stuff, all the Commandy, all the, the second gen Captain America, when he came back to Marvel, all those books were intact. And I remember the guy that was handling it, he didn't know me. It was the first time I'd ever been there. And a whole book was $2,000. And if it had the cover, it was $2,500. And now, those pages from those books now are worth $2,500 for a mediocre page, just a page.
Now, an artist like Kirby, he went through many different periods. He was working in the Golden Age. He was, of course, the driving force behind Marvel in the 60s. And then he sort of became, the moniker was Jack the Hack in the 70s and 80s.
Came out of style, that sort of modern, those modern new school guys, I call them, came in, and he fell out of favor. Yeah.
So when you are handling,
I looked at that too. I realized, yeah.
When you handle that style, that artist, let's say, are there certain periods that just because it's Marvel from the 60s, it sells better than, let's say, a Hunger Dogs from the 80s or something?
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, anything that has like the Marvel continuity on it is better. And then the Fourth World continuity, people really like. So that's strong material. The Silver Star and just like the Pacific Comic stuff. That's that falls off.
Right.
But that's when his career was waning, and unfortunately he went through that period where he fell out of favor. But I think he really has the appreciation of all the creators today and the fans today that really understand what an amazing creator. I've heard him called the greatest draftsman of the 20th century just by the way he laid out pages and his action. And it's like nobody did action like Jack. Jack is the reference for action, period, in comic book art.
It's actually, it's interesting, when I was in high school taking a TV production class, the textbook that we had was, it showed examples of his Western comics from the 1950s to explain what different camera shots were and explain visual continuity. And at the time, it didn't really, it was a new idea to put, comic book work into an actual textbook, and now we would probably think that that's normal. But because he was such an important figure, and doing things that would eventually be, I guess, the visual language that we understand, it was...
right, an influence on that visual language, right? Mm-hmm. You see, like, movies being made like Sin City that are made shot for shot from Frank Miller's comic book. Period. Shot for shot. Basically, that comic book has become the storyboard by which the filmmaker is making that. Or a friend of mine that I sell art to, Darren Aronofsky, I mean, the Noah Project, he made a graphic novel out of that story and sold it as a graphic novel before he got his budget to make the film. So the comic book and sequential art has become the selling tool of Hollywood features. It seems like it's amazing.
It is. Now, you have a business to sell the comic art. We have about 5 minutes or so left in our time here. Okay. So I was wondering if you could explain, like, let's say I go online, I visit anthonyscomicbookart.com, and I find a page that I like. What process do you go through to, well, first catalog the artwork and fulfill my order?
Okay. Well, yeah, we have a want list feature on the website, and you send in your want list, and then we make sure we have it, we confirm it. I'm in the process of e-commercing the site and making things available for instant checkout. But, we'll say, if you ordered this Conan page with this shipwreck and these guys attacking, then we make sure we have it. And like I said, this is a budget a piece of art. It's $85. And we'll confirm it. And then you PayPal me and we send it out. So if we only have 5 minutes, we should try to take a look around real quick.
Yes, please.
This is stuff we need to work on. That's my office that I can't work in because I have so much stuff that's been piling up. This is some cool stuff I just got in a deal. I just want to show you. like you see me geek out. Look at these. Marvel Blacklight posters from 1971 that have never been opened. 5 of them from the guy who bought them at the store, original owner. That got me excited. That's fun. Or like a hard to find like Superman.
Oh wow!
4 poster, the 6-foot version. It might be 5 feet or 6 feet. That's cool. But this got me excited too. He had a '66 Marvel memorabilia, Mary Marvel Marching Society, Hulk, the first generation of Marvel merchandising. So here we have more stuff we got to work on. There's tons of piles, and this is the comic room of all the processed comic books. We're trying to organize it for the big show. This is the lovely and talented Amanda.
Hi.
Hi.
You can see her at the show cosplaying at the booth.
And the next big show you'll be at is the New York City Comic Con?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I have 6 booths there. I'm actually probably the largest sole proprietor guy there. And this is the shipping room. And that's TJ. He likes to be shy. I think this is the Guardians of the Galaxy piece going out. Is this the Guardians of the Galaxy piece going out?
Yeah.
Oh, is that the other thing Craig got?
Okay. That's that piece that I did. I bought from Art Adams, and then I did a deal on it. I basically traded it out for a little more value. So I have, I paid cash for it, and then I took, more in perceived value. That's how I build up my inventory.
I'm being told we have about a minute left.
Okay, and then this is the back warehouse where we have all the inventory. This is all processed inventory that's available from my eBay store.
That is amazing. And that's a combination of graded comics and art?
This is all mostly comics, toys, magazines, different kinds of stuff. Paperbacks. These are from the 40s. These ones.
Well, Anthony, my floor manager is jumping up and down, telling me that we have to wrap up. This is like the library at Alexandria, and I'd like to thank you so much for taking us in here. If we wanted to find out more about your website, what's the website again?
Anthony'sComicBookArt.com. But all this stuff, like 65,000 listings right now, is on my eBay store.
Okay.
Because the artwork I do on my art site, and then everything else, like comics, toys, movie posters, and all this kind of stuff you see here, from G.I. Joe to Rock'em Sock'em Robots, and all the other collectibles are on my eBay store, and that's Anthony's Comic Book Art -online is my eBay ID.
All right. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for being with us today.
Customer service rep Shannon, she's in charge of customer service pizzazz.
All right. Well, we've run out of time. Anthony, Shannon, thank you so much for being with us today on Comic Culture. I'd like to thank you at home for watching. We'll see you again next time for another exciting episode.